Hello everyone, my name is Mike and this is the Bored Cyborg. I'm a little bit late with this video, so forgive me. Welcome back to yet another video. Today I'm going to be taking a look at my favorite films from 2019. I've seen 30 of them. I didn't see all the ones that I wanted to see, but I wanted to make this list, even though it's about a month late, because it was really a great year for cinema. Honestly, there are a lot of good films this year, and I really wanted to get in here and talk about how my list stands, at least right now. Maybe one day I'll go back to it once I've seen some of the films that I haven't seen for this year, which I do have written down here, just so everybody has an idea of what I've seen and what I haven't seen for the decade. The ones that I haven't seen are Uncut Gems, Ad Astra, Detective Pikachu, Little Monsters, Knives Out, and 1917. These are all films I want to see. These are all films that have the potential to at least breach my honorable mentions for the year. But I didn't see them, so they're not going to be included on this list. I'd love to know what your favorite films of 2019 are. I'm sure you all have your lists by now, since I'm a little bit late to the party as usual. But feel free to leave that in the comments below. As usual, we'll get a discussion rolling, guys. I always love talking to you guys about your lists. They're always so diverse and so interesting, and it's very exciting for me. So feel free to leave that in the comments below. Alright, so let's not waste any time and jump right into the honorable mentions. Now, the majority of these films I don't own, and that's pretty obvious. If you guys know me, you know I don't buy films when they first come out. I wait to find them at a pawn shop or a thrift shop or the bookstore I work at, which all these films inevitably will show up someday at the bookstore. So patience is a virtue. But my number 15 I just watched a couple nights ago, and I was utterly afraid to watch this film because the director's last couple films weren't too hot. And that is Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. I am such a fan of old school Kevin Smith, Clerks, Mallrats, films that I'm nostalgic for now, which is crazy to say, makes me feel like I'm getting older, which I am. Jay and Silent Bob from 2001 is one of my favorites of his, if not my favorite. In fact, it's my favorite of his. I love it. I was 13 when it came out, and my father and I watched it, and it starts with mother, noise, and my father was like, ah, la, 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 la. And then he was just like, oh well, whatever, enjoy, kid. And enjoy I did. We enjoyed it. We loved the movie. Still love it to this day. Still holds up remarkably. Now, Jay and Silent Bob the Reboot. It's very good. It's not as good as the original, but holy shit, it's like no time has gone by. He's got the whole crew back. Jason Mewes, I know he's been going through some troubles, but he sounded and looked great. And Kevin Smith was back with his slim vegan self, and it was just awesome to see them back. Their chemistry is still amazing. Jason Mewes is still funny as hell. It's just some hilarious moments in this film, including the intro, which I can't even discuss. It's so funny. It's so self-referential. It's so self-referential that it goes into meta territory. It transcends meta. It gets super meta by the end, and it's actually really, really funny. Kevin Smith makes fun of himself for 90 minutes long, and all of his friends, and comic book movies, and reboots, and all the things that are driving him nuts about the current state of cinema. And it's all there, and a lot of his sentiments I echo. So it was just a fun movie from beginning to end. It's exactly what I wanted out of a Jay and Silent Bob sequel, essentially, is what this is. So Jay and Silent Bob is one of my honorable mentions. Next up is Six Underground. What? A Michael Bay film making my honorable mentions for 2019? Hell yeah. This movie is killer. If you're a fan of action movies and you don't like this movie, well, sorry, you're not a fan of action movies. This film delivers on every front. Coherent action sequences. Some really high stakes, super slick action sequences and heist scenes that are just so awesome. The film follows a group of 6 people that are collected by this affluent designer or inventor who's just got a shit ton of money and all the time in the world, sort of like Bruce Wayne, to do something good for humanity. So he gets all these specialists together, forms a team, and goes on these missions to kill bad guys, essentially. Get rid of them. And wipe them off the face of the planet. Tyrannical leaders, things like that. So that is essentially what the film's about, but this film excels in its witty dialogue, which is written by the guys who did Deadpool. So it's got that same crude humor, but it works really well. They know how to do it really well. And obviously Ryan Reynolds, the connections are all there. So it feels Deadpoolish at points, for sure, which is not a bad thing. But the action is even better than the Deadpool movies. This film starts with a 25-minute or like a 20-minute car chase that is shot so damn well. This film uses long takes. You always know what's going on in the action, which can't be said for a lot of films these days. They have this really cool new ragdoll effect that they're having fun with. It's like a kid with a new toy. It's fun as hell. All the characters are developed pretty well, actually. Not as much development as I would have liked, but they do make the effort of developing these characters and showing us who they are behind the sort of hero, the superhero. And it does have a superhero vibe without the supernatural elements. I loved it. Six Underground, badass action movie. One of my favorites of 2019. My next honorable mention is Joker. I really, really like Joker, guys. Not as much as I guess the majority of people did. Everybody's saying it's like one of the best films ever made. I think it's a really good film, and definitely one of the best films of 2019. But I think King of Comedy and, Taxi Driver do it better. And that might be an unfair sort of comparison, even though the films are obviously connected. There is obvious influence that Todd Phillips drew from both of those films. It's written all over the film and the aesthetic and the themes. But I love Joker. I really did. The film is technically perfect. I mean, the look of the movie, I love the fiery reds like juxtaposed against the moody blues, and just the downtrodden feel of a society on the downward spiral of social disintegration. And I love the nihilistic tone in this. I tend to like nihilistic movies with no light at the end of the tunnel, that end bleakly, that end just in a dark way. I tend to like those sorts of films, like Martyrs. I'm a big fan of Martyrs as well, actually. I was reminded of Martyrs when watching this movie, for weird reasons, I guess. But yeah, it's a film about social disintegration, and it's a film about Arthur Fleck, a man who needs help, needs his society to stand up for him, his government to stand up for him, and he keeps getting betrayed. And so he ends up turning to crime. This is a Joker origin story, but it really isn't a superhero movie. It's a movie about Arthur Fleck. It's a movie about Joaquin Phoenix's performance, which is incredible. This guy is reaching Daniel Day-Lewis status, honestly, in my opinion. He's incredible in everything he does these days, and I love what he's doing. A true method actor, truly one of the best of our generation. And Joker, he knocks it out of the park. The score is fantastic. The soundtrack is perfect. It's Scorsese-esque for sure. De Niro's in this as the late night talk show host, and it's awkward, it's uncomfortable, and that's a good thing. It makes you feel that way for a reason. So Joker is one of my honorable mentions. Loved it. My next honorable mention is Batman versus the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I loved this movie just as a fun popcorn flick, 75 minutes long, straight to the point. Action scene after action scene. Yes, we do get a fight between the Turtles and Batman, where Batman basically wipes the floor with them, understandably. They are teenagers. Batman's been doing this a long time. But they eventually team up and join forces and kick some bad guys' asses like the Joker and a whole bunch of his squad and Ra's al Ghul, and which they pronounce 3 different ways in the movie, but that's okay. The animation is spectacular. The fight sequences are so perfectly drawn and hard-hitting. The sound design is great. I just love this film. I had such a fun movie. Batman and TMNT are 2 of my favorite comic book properties. 2 of the comic book properties that I really enjoy. And this film brings them both together and delivers on all fronts. It delivers what it sets out to do. It gives us the goods. It's a joke a second, almost actually too many jokes, really. Should have been a few moments of levity, but levity from the jokes. But the writing is great. It is a fan service movie through and through, and it served this fan. I loved it. And my last honorable mention, which definitely would have been on my list if it wasn't for how many great films I saw after it. That is King of the Monsters, Godzilla. Sorry, Godzilla King of the Monsters. I don't even know the title. I'm an idiot. But I saw this movie in theaters, and as a big Godzilla fan, didn't grow up with Godzilla, but I've been a big fan for quite a few years now. I don't know, 5 to 10 years or so. This felt like a fucking Godzilla movie, man. It brought Ghidorah and Mothra and Rodan back and introduced a whole bunch of new, cool designed, very coolly designed monsters. I believe I could use that word. And just really gave the fans what they wanted out of a Godzilla film. I am not a fan of the Godzilla film by Gareth Edwards. I think it has a lot going for it, but when you cut away from the monster fights twice in the first hour and a half of the film and kill off the only character that was worth a shit in the film in the first half hour, really big gaping holes in that movie. But King of Monsters really gave the fans what they wanted. My only gripe is that the film, a lot of the action is shot at night and with rain, and it's like, I want to see some daytime battles every once in a while. You know, I'm echoing James Rolfe's, the Nintendo nerd, sort of feelings on that, but he's right. I'd like to see these films, and there are some like dusky action sequences in this one, but the action's really well shot. It is a little hard to follow what's going on at points, at least it was in the theater, because I was just so excited at what I was seeing. Maybe it's a little bit better at home, but the action is awesome. It's what we're here for, and it's a Godzilla movie through and through. Can't fucking wait for King Kong vs. Godzilla next year, or maybe later this year, I'm not exactly sure, but Godzilla, King of the Monsters, my last honorable mention. Alright, my number 10 is Midsommar. Yep. Ari Aster does it again. His sophomore debut, or his sophomore effort, I should say, knocks it out of the park. Do I like Hereditary more? Yep, I do. I think it's more of a straight horror film. It cuts right to the point. More my speed. More my type of thing. But Midsommar is excellent. I mean, it's a solid 4 out of 5, guys. I loved this movie. I loved how Hereditary was really dark and moody and shot at night, whereas this one's all during the day. You could see everything that's going on. It's bright and cheery and pagan as hell. And yeah, this movie has some incredibly shocking sequences. Ari Aster does those really well with abrupt violence, not unlike the Coen brothers. That's who he reminds me of, sort of a horror version of the Coen brothers in a lot of ways. His scripts are multi-layered and really deep. But he gives us the goods on the surface, which is great. His films could be picked apart and explored for allegorical meaning, and which Midsommar has quite a bit of. In fact, there's a scene in the first hour that shows us the entire story. It's just this long take of the entire story drawn out on sort of a pagan artwork, we'll say, and it's just an incredibly cool movie with so many nuanced performances. Florence Pugh, I believe her name is. She is incredible in this movie. She's our vessel, and she's the one who we really, really feel for throughout this film. Her confusion. She does confusion and disorientation so goddamn well. And the last half hour of this film will have you clutching for your breath. Like it was hard to really stay focused because there's so much going on. It's so chaotic and so tense and stressful, So Midsommar, loved it. My number 10. Got a little string of horror movies here for my number 10, 9, and 8. My number 9 is Us. Another sophomore effort. Jordan Peele knocks it out of the park. Him and Ari Aster are saying, F you to the sophomore slump. And I am all about it. Us is really cool. One of the main reasons I love Us is because I thought it was going to be about something similar in theme to Get Out. I thought he was going to deal with more African-American themes, which he does to an extent in Us, but it's more a film about socioeconomics and about what it is to live in America, to be a human in America. And it follows, I can't really say too much. I don't want to go into what I'll say, the trailer shows that this family is vacationing in a home, and intruders. It's like a home invasion sort of setup, but these intruders turn out to be their doppelgangers, and that is shown in the trailer. So that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna say what the role of these doppelgangers are and what they play in the story, because it's really, really killer. It's really creative, really unique. I've never seen anything like it, and it screams Twilight Zone. And Jordan Peele is obviously a student of Twilight Zone. And this one has an amazing Twilight Zone ending, too. Perfect exposition, too. Really gives you just this scene that fleshes out what is going on in this world. And technically, this film is perfect. Jordan is a maestro behind the camera. He builds tension like Ari Aster. Him and these two build tension like no other in the genre right now. Incredible performances, by the way. Incredible performances by Lupita Nyong'o and everyone in her family. So Us, not quite as good as Get Out, but Get Out is a fucking masterpiece for the century. So Us, though, solid 4.5 out of 5. I absolutely loved it. My number 8 is another horror flick. Ready or Not came out this year with one of my favorite up-and-coming horror actors, Samara Weaving. You know, it's funny, she's like a deconstruction of the Scream Queen, right? She's a sort of just a badass, witty, take no shit sort of character that she plays like in The Babysitter, which I loved her in, fell in love with her there. And of course here in Ready or Not, she gets to really shine as the lead final girl who does not go down easily, man. This girl, once she finds out what's going on with this really weird family that she's married into, it's one of those films that deals with tradition and how toxic tradition can be to a society and how dangerous it could be to a society. And it follows her marrying into this family. This family has a tradition of playing games. In fact, they own a board game and game corporation that's been passed down through the generations. They have this giant mansion, and they pick a game for her that hasn't been picked in like 30 years. And as soon as she picks it, the whole family's like, oh fuck, and she's like, what's up, guys? I'm just gonna play the game, okay. And she starts playing, and she finds out that things aren't as they seem, and she is essentially being hunted, and she don't like that. So she fights back, and she fights back really well. And that is what this film is about. It's about her trying to get the fuck out of this house and get the fuck away from this crazy ass family. And Samara Weaving kills it top to bottom. I wish the film had a little bit more, how do I say, action, I guess, or violence, some more brutal kills. But it makes sense because it would have been a little unbelievable for Samara Weaving's character to just go from astute young woman to complete badass. And she does become that by the end, but it is really an arc for her, and it works really, really tremendously well. The script is one of the tightest of the fucking decade. This script has no dull moments. It's the perfect example of just flipping and flopping, messing with your expectations. In fact, it may mess with your expectations too much. It got to a point where I was able to foresee what the writers were doing, because they were flip-flopping it so damn much and trying to trick their audience. But I caught on to them in the last 40 minutes or so. But that's not to say the script was so goddamn tight, so well done, such a tense movie. I loved it. My number 8. My number 7. Yes, guys, a superhero film is in my top 10 of 2019. And I ain't afraid to say it. I'm not ashamed. I don't give a shit. Because this movie blew me away, and I fucking loved it. Shazam is my number 7. I love this movie. It's one of my favorite superhero films of the decade, for sure. Winter Soldier still beats it out. But Shazam made me feel like a kid again, man. It brought me back to my childhood. It even felt like a 90s family film. A family film that is not only made for kids, it's made for adults as well. This is a story about Billy Batson trying to find a family. And Billy Batson is imbued with this power, which enables him to turn into the perfect version of himself, who is played by Zachary Levi to the T, which is just hilarious. He is so funny. I had never seen Chuck, but he was perfect in this, and perfectly toned, by the way. This dude did some serious lifting to get in shape for this role, and he plays it perfectly. And the chemistry between those two characters as they sort of flop in and out of existence, because anytime Billy Batson says Shazam, he becomes Shazam, Zachary Levi's character. So it is just such a heartfelt movie about what it means to let go of certain things that are holding you back, even if it's your family. Also about finding your true family. He finds an orphanage with a whole bunch of diverse children who are also orphans, obviously, and a really cool foster couple is watching them and taking care of them. And of course, at first he's like standoffish and isn't getting down with it. But as time goes on, he learns to fall in love with these people, and I fell in love with them as well, including Billy Batson. And it's just such a great film with a great villain in Mark Strong, and it's just the action. You know, the action in this movie is so phenomenal. It's got a great shot of Billy Batson jumping off a rooftop and screaming Shazam, and he switches into Shazam, and he just flies off, and it's just remarkable. Great shot. The director, I forget his name right now, damn it, but he did Lights Out, which I haven't seen, and this guy is showing his chops, man. He's a hell of a director. He directs this movie to the T. It is really well shot, and I love the juxtaposition between the vibrant colors of the Christmas season and Shazam's outfit juxtaposed against the darkness of the seedy Philly streets, you know, with Billy Batson sort of a street smart sort of kid. And I love that the darkness of the city. It takes place mostly at night, and it really made the film stand out in terms of its aesthetic, whereas all the other DC and Marvel films sort of have the same sort of vibrant, fun, flashy look. This film does that, but it does it in a more creative way, and I was really, really impressed. I love Shazam. It's my number 7. All right, and my number 6 is the only film on the list, I believe, that I do own, and that is one of the best action films of the decade and one of the best action films of 2019. Avengement. Some of you probably haven't even heard of this movie. This is the latest Jesse V. Johnson and Scott Adkins team up. They've got Debt Collector 2 coming out soon, which I can't wait for. But Jesse V. Johnson, I did an entire review on this film. It was one of my first off-the-cuff sort of reviews. Feel free to check that out. What can I say that I didn't say already in that review? I mean, this film is a balls-to-the-wall action flick. No bullshit here. A nice, simple setup, which Jesse V. Johnson excels in. Scott Adkins is his centerpiece, the force that holds this movie all together. And it follows him, he's trying to open up a gym. He's trying to do something good for the community. But his brother is a gangster, and in turn for giving his brother the money to open up this gym, he asks his brother, Scott Adkins, his character, to do a favor for him. Things get very out of control very quickly, and so basically Scott Adkins is forced to fight for his life. And he does that. He does so in a series of incredible action sequences, some of the best of the year. These fight scenes are so hard-hitting, so brutal and violent, and they make you feel every single hit. And Jesse V. Johnson knows how to shoot them wide, low, gives Scott Adkins the rein to show his beautiful artistry. This film is so good. Such a cool narrative style. It basically shows him busting into his brother's bar and telling the story about what got him to the point where he busted in his brother's bar. And it's really cool. It's a really cool narrative structure that just works in its simplicity and its execution. So I absolutely love Avengement. It's my number 6, one of my favorite films of 2019. So I had a superhero comic book action movie, and then a DTV action movie, and now I've got a Netflix exclusive, The Irishman. The Irishman is my number 5. How could it not be on this list? Martin Scorsese is one of my favorite directors of all time. He brings an elegance to film, a clarity to the stories he is telling, that not many directors can bring. This film is incredible. Everything about it. The first shot is darkness all around the frame, and it's pushing into a retirement home. And that really sets up what this film is all about. It's about the end of a legacy that Robert De Niro, Scorsese, and Joe Pesci have built over the last 30 years. Starting with Goodfellas. I mean, with De Niro going even further back to Mean Streets and Keitel. And this is the true successor to films like Goodfellas and Casino. It feels right at home with those, but it's not quite the same thing. It is not a film that glamorizes the life. In fact, it's a film that makes the life look pretty awful. Our main character is Frank Sheeran, played by De Niro in a truly unbelievable performance by De Niro, one of his best in years. And it follows him, and he's this man who is just cold. It's hard for him to feel anything, and that's why he was a hitman for the mob. And even when he's with his family, there's a distance there that it's palpable. You see it, you feel it, and you feel for this character that can't feel. That is what's really impressive about the character, actually. You know, you shouldn't care about him, but you do because of his lack of empathy. And it's really an interesting statement. Let alone Al Pacino, Joe Pesci back as the mob boss, which is such a cool sort of evolution of his firecracker characters in Goodfellas and Casino. He's calm and collected in this. He's the boss, you know. It's as if Tommy from Goodfellas actually got made as opposed to being whacked and sort of calmed down in his older age, you know. The film does such a great job with de-aging. It's a little uncanny at first, but you really do get used to it in time. What really threw me off was Robert De Niro's blue eyes. Frank Sheeran had blue eyes, obviously, the Irishman. And that really threw me off. I was like, that is so weird. It transforms him. It really does. It helps his character and his acting. Not that he needs help. Yeah, I haven't even gone into what the story is about, but I don't feel like I really need to. It deals with Jimmy Hoffa and sort of Frank Sheeran's relationship with him and the people that it affects. And it's a really, really great movie. One of my favorites of the year, absolutely. I can't wait to revisit this because, you know, it's a long one and it's not slow by any means, but there's a lot there to unpack. So I can't wait to revisit this one. Love The Irishman. Scorsese is back. And not that he ever left, but this is my type of Scorsese. So love the film. My number 5. My number 4 is The Lighthouse. I guess I could take this away. I don't own The Lighthouse yet, but I will. God damn it, I will soon. The Lighthouse is incredible. From its authenticity of the time period, which is the mid-19th century about, I think, to the performances by Pattinson and Dafoe, some of their best performances of their career, certainly could be said for Pattinson. And they play these lighthouse keepers who are on this island, actually, where a lighthouse is. It's a film about isolation and what isolation can do to the human psyche. And it's a film about madness. Once you get past that isolation, you turn to madness. And this film deals with that expertly. Now, what really makes me fall in love with this film is its execution. Its utilization of black and white. I've never seen a film... How do I say this? I've never seen a film shot like this in black and white. It's one of the best shot black and white films I've ever seen. The cinematography is incredible. In fact, I think it was the only thing it got nominated for. It should have been nominated for a lot more, in my opinion, but whatever. That's the Academy. This director, Robert Eggers, who did The Witch a few years back, which is incredible as well. I like The Lighthouse a little bit more, though, because of what he does with the camera and what he does with aspect ratio and the black and white. This guy actually bought cameras from the 30s and 40s and lenses from the time and equipment from the time to make this film look as authentic as possible as a black and white picture. And he knocks it out of the park. The black and white is incredible. I already talked about it. The 4:3 aspect ratio really assists in making our characters feel imprisoned, confined, and unable to leave this island. And in turn, it makes the audience feel that way. It made me feel so claustrophobic. And every shot is perfectly framed to make them feel like they are just inside those black bars of the frame. You know, the black bars that are always neglected by filmmakers, right? But this filmmaker knew that he makes the black bars on the outside of your screen feel like a part of your picture, which it technically is, but it makes it feel like part of the film. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it, save for in Grand Budapest Hotel. There's some similar things going on with Wes Anderson's usage of aspect ratio. I love this new idea of messing with aspect ratio for different scenes and certain things to make you feel more and more claustrophobic. It's incredible. The Lighthouse, I love The Lighthouse. There's so much there to unpack. I'm still digesting it, in fact, but incredible movie. The Lighthouse is my number 4. My number 3, he does it again. JW, John Wick. John Wick 3, Parabellum, which I love that subtitle. I'm so glad they kept it. John Wick 3 makes the John Wick movies one of the greatest trilogies of all time. Not only in the action franchises, of all time. Period. God damn it. Now, don't take this the wrong way. It's my least favorite of the 3. But it's still perfect, you know? Or damn near perfect. I love love John Wick 3. I only have a few personal things that bothered me, and that's mostly the usage of the animals, because I feel like at this point we should just be using CG animals. That is a totally personal thing. It just bothers me a little bit. I'm sure the animals were treated with care, but it just irks me a little bit. But I recognize that's super personal. But other than that, man, this film ups the ante, incorporating animals into the action sequences, bringing in Mark Dacascos as our big bad, which is incredible to see him. When he was announced, I was so hyped, and I didn't know what he played until I saw the film. And when I found out he was basically the big heavy, the big final boss per se, I was in ecstasy. Those of you that don't know, Mark Dacascos is an action star that's been doing his thing since frickin' the 90s with Only the Strong and Drive and Brotherhood of the Wolf and a lot of great action flicks that have just, Crying Freeman, that have just gone under the radar for a lot of people. This guy should have been one of the premier action stars of the 90s with his physicality, his look. He's a pretty looking dude, so I never understood why he didn't get to the Van Damme level, because he's technically a better actor, I think, or comparable actor to Van Damme. But it was great seeing Mark Dacascos and Lawrence Fishburne back, and this film just... Stahelski is getting better and better with his direction and with his choreography and his fight sequences and his planning, even though I think the fights in 2 are probably better overall. 3, he's really creative and really tries some new things, which I absolutely commend and applaud. So, John Wick 3 Parabellum, Keanu back doing his dizzang, whooping people's ass, shooting motherfuckers in the face. It's incredible. I love it to death. It's my number 3. John Wick 3. Alright, my number 2, I am literally still digesting. I've saw it a few days ago, as of recording this video, and it left me speechless. I'm still thinking about it, still pondering, still writing ideas about what I think the director was trying to say. And that director is Joon-ho Bong, and that is his film, Parasite. Parasite is a drama, but it's so much more than that. It's a thriller. It's a it's a comedy. It's a dark humor comedy, and it follows a family led by Kang Ho-song, the actor, who I forget the family's name, forgive me, but I remember the affluent family's name, the Parks. It follows a poor family who's struggling to get by, struggling to feed themselves, who find an opportunity with this affluent family named the Parks, who are very cold and distant. Every time it shows them as a family, it just doesn't feel cohesive. They're always apart from each other in this big, sprawling, spacious house, whereas the poor family feels tight-knit and in tune with one another, and they care for each other, they love one another. And that's a statement in and of itself, right? But it's really a film about them ingratiating their way into this family's life in order to make money from them, or off of them, doing various jobs for them. So much subtext there, right? There's so much that could be said about classism and what it means to be poor, what it means to be rich, and what money does to an individual, whether you're poor or rich. Even the idea that the prospect of making money could make a human a bad human. Because it's a selfish endeavor a lot of the time. So this film deals with all of these ideas remarkably well, and Joon-ho Bong has been one of my favorite directors for a while. Snowpiercer, he's part of the South Korean triumvirate. He did The Host, Chan-wook Park, Ji-woon Kim, and Joon-ho Bong. Those 3 guys, I absolutely love all of their work, and this is Joon-ho Bong's best movie. I like it more than anything he's done, including Memories of Murder, which is an incredible film. Kang Ho-song is excellent. All the acting is... I wish I knew all the actors' names. I don't, but they're all incredible, and I cared about each and every one of them. Each and every single one of them. The film is perfect. It's a 5. There aren't many films that I watch and immediately give a 5, because I usually give it a 4.5 if I think it's perfect and ponder on it. Usually it stays there at a 4.5. This film's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. It has so much to say. I love the climax. It's incredible. And I love Parasite. I love it so much. Can't wait to watch it again. It has so much to say, and it speaks to so many important social issues in this world and in this country. So, Parasite, my number 2. Alright, my number 1, man, my number 2 and my number 1 are like this. But, because of the subject matter of my number 1, that's what puts it just slightly over Parasite, and that is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Tarantino's love letter to cinema, to Hollywood, to lovers of cinema, to filmmakers, to actors. It is just a love letter to the medium, and I fell in love with it, just like when I fell in love with film. This film reminds you why you love film so much, why storytelling is such an important thing, how much we could learn from it. And each of these characters rekindles, refines, relearns why they love cinema. Margot Robbie's character, who plays Sharon Tate, there's a scene with her in the theater when she's going to see her own movie, and she's really nervous, she's looking around, and her character pops up on screen, and she makes the audience laugh. And she looks around, and she is just in heaven, right? Because she just wants to entertain. She's so pleased that she's able to entertain these people, and it's clear why she loves what she does. DiCaprio's character has a moment like this where a little girl tells him that she just saw some of the best acting she's ever seen. Really brought a tear to my eye. And then, of course, Cliff Booth, who is played by Brad Pitt, who is one of my favorite characters in a long time. And the first 10 minutes follows him kind of chauffeuring Leo's character around, and just sort of playing the, yeah, Leo, yeah, whatever you say, man. I forget his character's name. And they have a really strong relationship, but you could tell he's like holding the back a little bit, trying to be professional as he could be. And as soon as they part ways, it's like Cliff Booth is let free from his cage, and he's swerving all around like a stuntman would. You know, he's a stuntman, obviously, for Leo's character. And he gets home, and it's this little hole-in-the-wall mobile home with a dog and memorabilia everywhere, and it's clear he loves what he does, and he loves cinema. And that's what this film really, really spoke to me about. There's a lot of subtext, obviously, so many layers in this film. By one of there was a moment in this film where I was like, Tarantino's the greatest. You know, I said that out loud. I was like, Tarantino's the greatest, as a tear was streaming down my face. And I really think he is one of the greats, if not, the greatest filmmaker of our generation, at least. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood literally spoke to me when there was no dialogue. And it's a masterful movie. It may be his best. Pulp Fiction still holds the #1 spot, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is absolutely incredible. It is my favorite film of 2019. Hands down. Well, not hands down, but because of its subject matter and because of the way it spoke to me about even just content creating and what content creating does for people watching videos and watching movies, that escapism, that entertainment, that insight, that perspective, that knowledge that is gained from art. It all really spoke to me and inspired me to continue writing my own stories and trying to get them made. So one of these days. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, my numero uno. I just want to thank you all for checking out my list of my favorite films from 2019. It was a really difficult list to put together. It would have been even more difficult if I watched, the 5 or 6 films that I mentioned in the beginning of the video that I've yet to see from 2019. But I think I did pretty good. 30 films in a year is actually way more than I usually see within a year span. I usually am very late to the party, but being a YouTuber now and content creating, it's forced me to really watch these films as they're relevant, which is definitely a good thing and allows me to make videos like this. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'd love to see what your lists are, so please feel free to leave those down in the comments below. All your lists are always so diverse and so interesting, and it's really fun talking about them. So can't wait to see those down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel and want to see more videos like it, feel free to give the bar guide, screwed that up, hit the subscribe button, and the little bell for notifications. Anyway, guys, I will see you next time. Bored Cyborg, out. I've got nothing. See you next time.